Well, here is someone who's on time all the way from Los Angeles. Our next guest started her company with one specific focus, teaching lawyers how to win in the courtroom by appealing to jurors' visual senses rather than their audio senses. But the Huck Group's message focusing on visual memory retention had enormous implications for businesses, not just members of the bar. So now with offices in both Los Angeles and Chicago, Juliet Huck's company continues to grow. Her most recent addition, advising political clients. So joining us tonight to explain her method for success, Huck Group founder Juliet Huck. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So it was really interesting in reading the background of your company and why you became so passionate about this idea. You point out that experts say that people's memory is 70%, I think you said, visual, and 10-20% audio, something like that. So you said, you know, in a courtroom where so much of the evidence is presented orally, you're not making your most winning case.
That's
so
right.
What are you training lawyers and others to do instead?
It's really what we call the equation of persuasion. It's a combination of what you want to do is taking the audio and the visual to push up that retention level, especially when you have cases that go for months at a time, weeks at a time. What you present the first day, does it last through the second day to closing arguments? So one of the things we really try to do is then create relationship with the person who's actually presenting that information with that audience, which may be jurors. In other arenas, it could be corporations, board of directors. And then what happens is when those two worlds of retention and relationship come together, that's where the persuasive moment really hits, and that's what's kind of fun about it.
So the equation of persuasion, and some of the examples that I've seen on your website, basically the kind of thing that we try and employ in the news medium when we've got a minute and 15 seconds to tell a complicated story. Graphics.
Right.
And you have some very compelling graphics with all kinds of charts. You would be Ross Perot's dream situation. Why are those kinds of things more effective than telling people what they need to hear?
Well, a lot of times the facts are the facts, and when you can see the facts, it's very compelling, and it's much more persuasive, and that's why we go after persuasive communications versus just communications in general, because when you have those facts and your words together, it backs up your credibility, and it allows you to really show that what you're saying is true.
So give me an example in the political world. What is it that you can teach a politician to do to communicate with a voter that they haven't already heard from all the consultants here in town?
Well, a lot of it is getting out of their own way, and a lot of it is President Obama did a great job on running for president because he could relate to the people. And that empathetic way is what starts to draw that crowd towards you. And I think when you can do that and back that up with facts that people can remember, because the retention level is visual, picture's worth 1,000 words, you start building that relationship and the visual facts behind you, and it's very powerful.
So you sound like the kind of woman Michael Deaver would have loved to have had in the Reagan White House. He always understood that it wasn't just President Reagan and his good looks and his visual, but the visual backdrop. So give me some examples of, say, where you would put Barack Obama if you're trying to sell the jobs program. Would you put him at a podium? Where would you put Barack Obama to visually sell his message?
Well, I would put him more so, I would put him at a podium, but I still think he needs to have that credibility as the President of the United States. But I also would add some visual format to that. What benefits do we get from this? I hear a lot of people that say to me, well, they always tell me what they're going to do, but they don't tell me how they're going to do it. And I think the visual actually allows people sometimes to say, yeah, there's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, not necessarily bullet points, but how is that going to affect me as a person?
So, for example, should Barack Obama be using pie charts?
I think at times it wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean,
it might have kept those West Point cadets awake when he was laying out Afghanistan. A lot of people criticized, saying that they would look like they were a little sleepy.
Right.
Well, we've only got 30 minutes left in this, and then we're going to come back in the second part to talk more. What are you finding in terms of the political community, in terms of what they don't get?
What they don't get is, I think, that really simplifying, it's very, very difficult to simplify your message. But the Internet has trained us to do it, and we go through the Internet and you pick a headline, and you pick a headline out of the paper what you want to read, and that is one of the hardest things.
Critics say it's why they're not selling health care. People just don't get it and understand it. Okay, we're going to be right back after the break. And we're back with Juliet Huck, head of the Huck Group, a firm that focuses on winning over jurors, consumers, voters, and a variety of clients by focusing on the visual. Juliet, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's go to the genesis of this company, working with lawyers. How do you win people over in the courtroom? Because, as you said, cases can go for long periods of time, and it's hard to make sure that the jurors are retaining those facts.
Sure. Well, one of the first things is really sitting down and working out the story. there's a mound of evidence, and we use the philosophy that there's the forest of evidence, and it's just mounds of how do you actually start stringing that together for it to make a compelling story.
And what's interesting is I've seen on your website you do a site visit with whatever your client is, whether it's a lawyer or a corporation. You get a better understanding of what it is they're trying to sell, and then in true Hollywood fashion, you're based in LA, you do storyboards.
Storyboard out everything. So what we can do is start to see how the visual story comes to life, and how the story itself is persuasive. How do we put the persuasive information design into the visuals to get that message out immediately?
One example that I looked at was the genesis of satellites and how satellite worked, and you just from A, B, C to D, you explained here's how it all started with television and moving from there. What is it that lawyers are most missing when they're in the courtroom in terms of selling their message?
Again, simplifying. It really is trying to take a simple message and then string it through their entire case. And with so many moving parts, it's a very difficult thing to do.
And if there's just one message you could give to anyone with a business in terms of rising above the cacophony of all this noise today, where you're getting blasted as a consumer by so many different sources from the internet to television, how does someone that's trying to sell their product rise above all of that?
Really get to know your audience. You have to know the elements of your audience, and again, get out of your own way and get to what they're looking for. And therefore craft your message as to what someone's looking for to hit that persuasive moment.
So you get to know the client and then you get to know the audience?
Very much so.
And then it's a beautiful relationship.
It's stars that are aligned.
Well, you came in from LA to do this interview because we're interested in what you do, and we thank you for it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Juliet Huck.
Appreciate it.